If you want to talk about a topic that I get calls on almost every single day, then we should go ahead and put a banner right here that says long-term and short-term rentals. I love the fact that you guys are getting into real estate investing, and I love real estate investing. I personally myself own an Airbnb and some apartment buildings. I have long-term and short-term rentals. My theory in real estate is I have to do it first before I can teach you. So after managing 30 Airbnbs over the past few years, having 2 Airbnb management companies, as well as obviously my sales business where I help investors buy and sell their investment properties, I think I'm somewhat qualified to give this video some real good tips and tricks. So if you're interested, here we go. I'm Nick Williams, the Alaskan Realtor. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and we are going to talk about investing in real estate. Now, what does that mean? That means you can go one of 3 different ways. Long-term rentals, which is your traditional landlord model. Short-term rentals, which nowadays are just being called Airbnbs, even though there's a million different websites like VBRO, Booking.com, etc. that do short-term rentals. And then the secret hidden gem that most people don't know about, mid-term rentals. So what are these and what does that mean? Well, I'll start at square one and we're gonna end at the end. So most common is long-term rentals. This is what most landlords across the entire country do. And that is buying a building, whether it's a single family home or an apartment complex, and renting out those units for 1 year, 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, up to you and the lease agreement between you and your tenants. Now, personally, I don't ever do a more than 1 year lease because inflation has been running rapid. And if inflation's at 4%, your rent should go up by 4% as well. Just makes sense. Pass it on. Same thing with fuel costs. If fuel costs go up and you as a landlord are paying for fuel, you need to add a fuel surcharge to your lease. These are just some of the tips and nuggets I'm going to give you throughout this video, so make sure you have pen and paper because there will be more. So long-term rentals are fantastic. You want to definitely go into Google and type in this exact thing, Landlord-Tenant Act in Alaska. It's gonna be a PDF that you can download. Go ahead and read over the whole thing. It's about 50 pages long. It's not a hard read, but that is the rule book on what you and your tenants have as far as rights and responsibilities. It even has some example notices like 24-hour notice for showings or notice to quit for a lease or an eviction. So again, before you call an attorney, a lot of these things are really made simple by the state of Alaska, and you can look it up on the Landlord-Tenant Act. Secondly, know what your state's rules are. This goes back to the Landlord-Tenant Act, but know if you are crossing a line or not, what you can and cannot charge. Is there a limit to a pet fee? Can you say no to certain animals? What is a service animal actually comprised of? What documentation is required? All those things are great things that you should research and know before getting into long-term rentals, because you will have tenants that try to take advantage of you as a landlord and your kindness for letting them live in your property. So, number 2 is short-term rentals. I'm intentionally skipping mid-term rentals. There's something special. I want to talk about them at the end. So a short-term rental is anything you can find on Airbnb, VBRO, Booking.com, or one of the million other websites like Travelocity and TripAdvisor and Bon Voyage, Marriott, etc., etc. These are properties that you can rent from anywhere from 1 day to 30 days, possibly longer. You could rent them for 6 months, but it all depends on availability. And short-term rentals usually do not have long-term availability because there are spotty guests that have booked ahead of time. So short-term rentals here are great. They used to average you double, that's 2 times the average long-term rent. So if the property rented out for $1,500 a month long-term, furnished on a short-term basis, it should have been grossing you about $3,000. Now, that number is decreasing. And the reason is 3 things. 1, lack of tourism. So since the tariffs and all the turmoil over the last year, we have seen a decline in tourism. Decline in tourism means less people booking your place, which means less money that you keep in your pocket. The second thing that is bleeding us dry in the short-term rental market is fees. Airbnb just took the management fee up to 15%. So every dollar you make, you're paying 15% if you have a manager. If you are privately managed, it's still, I believe, somewhere between 3 and 5%. But most people that buy out-of-state short-term rentals have a management service that helps them take care of those Airbnbs. Now, what is a normal management fee? Well, my company used to charge 20%, and that was not enough. Most companies charge 25%, and I'm starting to see some management companies charging 30 to 35% due to the increase in those management fees that are being passed through to you. So That being said, if you have a problem with those, definitely appeal to Airbnb, VBRO, Booking.com, and those websites, because each one has a different fee. There's also a strategy to work around this. You can pick one platform and specialize in that platform, or you can have a management software that brings you to numerous different platforms and then deconflicts those calendars as you get those bookings. I highly recommend saturating the market so that you can be exposed to as much clientele as possible and get the maximum amount of bookings. On average, if you're above 70% occupancy here in Fairbanks, North Pole, you're doing fantastic. This video is not for you. If you are below a 70%, you either need to get that occupancy rate up by dropping the price, or better photography, or a social media page, or something like direct bookings where you can avoid the fees. There are countless different ways on how to do this, but this is just one way. Other things, the third thing you need to remember is, why would somebody want to stay in your property? We have so many people that want to buy fourplexes and then have 4 Airbnbs. Well, those just don't do well. Here in Fairbanks, we have 2 seasons, the summer and the winter season. And predominantly in the winter season, we get tourists from Asia, China, Japan, Korea. And in the summer, we get a European crowd, a lot of Germans, French, Swiss, Italian. And so if you tailor your house to those markets, you can really maximize your income during those seasons. Historically, there are 2 months that do extremely poorly in the short-term rental market, and that's the in-between seasons. As I've told you in previous videos, we don't really have a spring and a fall here. We have breakup and hunting season, both which take about a month. So the month that is going to be the worst to have a short-term rental in is actually going to be April and October. That's our in-between seasons where it goes from snowy to not, and from not to snowy again. So those months are by far the worst. You'll possibly be able to pay your mortgage, but after fees and other things, you might be a little bit short. So just be advised, you want to make sure you make more money throughout the year so that you can carry over on those months. Additionally, do not treat your Airbnb like a piggy bank. I have clients that are trying to pull 100% profits out of their B&B every single month. I highly suggest that you have a reserve account in case something breaks, you have some vacancies, etc. What I recommend you do is you pool up all of your income for the year, and then at the end of the year, when everything's said and done, you leave a reserve for the next year and you pull the rest out as a profit. Now, I'm not an accountant, that is not financial advice, but that is a good, safe trick to make sure you don't overextend yourself and you have plenty of money to pay for your taxes when your tax return is due in the next year. Other things you need to be aware of is the borough bed tax. So Fairbanks, North Pole, and the North Star Borough have a bed tax of 8.5%. They're really cracking down on this year. They're sending out letters for everybody to manage and register their Airbnbs, because the local government here doesn't even know how many we have. The answer is we have too many, which is why those values are starting to go down, because the market is oversaturated. Now, the good thing is quality Airbnbs are going to thrive, and they still are. This would be your luxury homes, your homes with really great features like hot tubs, parks nearby, rivers in the background, mountain views, those kinds of things. The staycation homes are going to kill it in 2026. The apartment style cheap stay Airbnbs, where you can get a Airbnb for $150 and just crash pad it, they're not doing real well. There's too many of them. Too many people turned lower income housing into Airbnbs, and usually they get bad reviews because they're just not as nice of a house. That being said, keep in mind when you do come and visit, we're in Alaska. We have slower internet. Things take longer to get fixed. There is no like 24-hour plumbing service. Like if something goes wrong on a Friday night, you probably are screwed until Monday. Welcome to a small town. And lastly, now that we're done with short-term rentals, the golden goose of the bunch, but it's a dying breed of its own, midterm rentals. This is anything over 30 days. And the reason why these are so good is because if you're over 30 days, you do not have to pay the bed tax, meaning you save 8.5% right off the get-go. Secondly, most of these platforms that allow you to advertise medium stay rentals, they don't charge you that large of a fee like the short-term guys do. So the great news is, you keep a lot more of your money. If you made $2,000, you're gonna probably pocket somewhere around $1,800, depending on your management fee and so on. The issue with midterm rentals usually are, they're industry-based, right? So you got traveling nurses, seasonal workers, seasonal construction guys, that kind of stuff that come up here at Fairbanks, either in the summer or winter, depending on their business. And those were more common during COVID than they are now. we're seeing a little bit of a off-put. Just like we saw less tourism in the short-term market, we're seeing less of that professional travel as well. And one of the main things is we saw a huge market for traveling nurses in the COVID time period. So this was a booming economy. But since then, the hospital has realized that it is so dependent on traveling nurses, and they went out and bought a 65 apartment building with 65 units in it. And that's where they're putting all their traveling nurses now. So one, it makes it easier for them and the hospital, and it kind of takes some opportunities away from us investors. But the good news is it did free up a lot more for tourism, and the battle between Airbnbs and hotels are still ongoing in the area. Now, double-edged sword, in my opinion, if we want to get into politics, the politicians hate our short-term options in town because they feel like it's bringing the price of single-family homes up, and it is causing a little bit of a pinch on inventory and demand. I can tell you that is probably correct, but what they're not factoring is they're focusing on the negatives only. Right now in the summer, if you want to come to Fairbanks, most people can't even find a place to stay. The hotels are booked. They're $400 a night most of the summer, and high season events in the winter as well. So the cost of these hotels are ridiculous, and the Airbnbs are usually cheaper for an entire home setting, and it makes it cheaper for people that are traveling in groups to stay together. So the demand is still there, but the government doesn't like it, and they're only looking at what's negative to the housing market, not what's positive to our economy. I think it's a double-edged sword, and we need to find a balance between the two. Now, some loan types you need to consider if you're looking into investment properties are things like the DSCR loan, investor loans, commercial loans, maybe even a rehab or construction loan if you want to buy something a little bit more worn down that you're going to fix up to be a nicer rental or investment property. Anything will do, but the key that you got to keep in mind is if you want one of these low down payments, you usually have to own or occupy the property. That'll be 5% or less down. Most properties that are seen as a short-term, long-term rental are investment products, and you're looking between 20 and 30%, with average being around 25% down. So there's a little bit more of an upfront investment, but the good thing is that goes 100% towards your equity, so it makes the property a lot easier to sell in the future. If your business fails, you're not completely out of luck. The property can still salvage your profitability. Number two, if you do have a solid Airbnb, short-term rental, mid-term rental, or even long-term rental, make sure you have great financials. Track all of your expenditures. First off, these are write-offs against your taxes, but also when we sell or try to transfer the property, these financials are key to proving to potential buyers the value of your home and how much money it could generate in a similar situation. So definitely make sure you have good record keeping on all your maintenance logs, financials, and more. You want quarterly P&L statements and balance sheets. And lastly, have fun with it. What I've realized is the people that have fun with their Airbnbs, try to give it a personality, a little bit of a custom touch, they succeed like you will not believe. On the other hand, if you plan on buying a cheap house, going to Walmart and buying the cheapest stuff possible to furnish your home, you're going to get bad reviews, and in the end, that will kill your business. So don't go cheap. Put some effort into it, buy some quality stuff. Quality does last longer, and have features in your home that make people want to stay here. Keep in mind it's cold here in the winter. In the summer, they're not going to be in your house very long. But in the winter, you're going to want some kind of gaming system, nicer entertainment system, surround sound maybe. I've had Airbnbs with movie theaters. I've had Airbnbs with hot tubs and saunas. It doesn't really matter. Just make sure there's some entertainment in the house. If you're going to do the bare minimum and have a couch, TV, dining room, bed, maybe an end table and a bathroom, well, you failed, and you probably will not be very successful at this venture. Put some effort into it, design it, look at other Airbnbs that are doing well, do some research, and that will be my parting tip. Go ahead and sign up at AirDNA.com in order to pull all of your short-term rental statistics so that you know if a market is good to invest in or not. And with that, I would say go ahead and sign up for biggerpockets.com. I went to BPCon last year. They are a website that is absolutely great on how they educate investors, everything from the BRRRR method to DSCR loans. They talk about it all. And so if you want more after today's video, I will gladly talk to you guys in the comments below, but also biggerpockets.com probably already has the answers. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.